So the good news is that the DBQ is not changing all that much. We will still need to teach students good thesis writing skills. We will still see a series of documents to be used for evidence. We will still expect students to use contextual evidence to explain the documents. Students will still be expected to have an essay that provides an overall, coherent, and well-organized argument. However, there will be some changes based upon getting the students to do more critical thinking about the documents. As with most of the changes, I would suggest that we don't need to get too freaked out. The truth is that we are already doing this. It's just going to be about providing a more conscious and well-elaborated explanation of the skills that will be needed. So this lecture will explain the changes, the rubric for the DBQ, and one possible organizational tool for students to gather information. The first major change for the DBQ will be the analysis of the documents. In the past, it was enough for the students to address half of the documents, and students could just paraphrase the documents. This is no longer the case. Students will now need to address all the documents. They can miss one document, although we want to see the bar high for them on this. And the students must do more than paraphrase. They need to do one of the following for each document. Now you will have to either provide the intended audience of the document, provide the document's purpose, or explain the historical context of the document, or provide the author's point of view. You do not have to do all of these for every document, but you do have to do one for each document. There is a separate point for the use of historical context. This may get confusing since the previous change offered that is one of the choices for analyzing the documents. So doesn't this become essentially double dipping? The idea for the separate point for context is if the students provide an essay that is only about historical context, not analysis of the documents. So this provides both a caution for the students and an advantage. The caution is that students must analyze the documents and not just rely on their historical knowledge. The advantage is that most students will do both the documents and some historical context. So this point should be an easy one to pick up. The next change is a tough one. It is called contextualization. This will confuse teachers and students for a while because it is so abstract. The idea of contextualization gets into the debate about what makes a period unique. You will need to have the students connect the analysis to a bigger event that is going throughout the period. For example, a DBQ could address the Great Migration or the Civil Rights Movement, or a DBQ on the Nixon period could address the Vietnam War and the question of presidential powers. This point will be for students to identify a general issue of the period that is continuous throughout. Finally, the students must provide synthesis in their essay. Synthesis is defined as the ability for a student to make a connection between the information in the DBQ with another time period, place, or context. For example, a DBQ on the Civil War could open up a connection with the growth of presidential powers during wartime for the Wilsonian, Nixonian, Bush, or Obama presidencies. The point will be for students to make a general connection between one time period and another. So the old rubric was based upon 9 points and was largely holistic in nature. This meant that a teacher was supposed to provide an overall assessment of an essay within certain ranges. For example, a 7 to 9 essay would be an excellent essay with a strong thesis, variety of evidence, and a coherent argument, while a 4 to 6 essay would be an essay with a good thesis, some evidence, and some problems with organization. This allowed for teachers to use their discernment process overall for the essay to fit into a category or range. The new rubric has moved to the asset model. The asset model of grading is based upon giving students points for hitting certain skills. Unlike the holistic model that either rewards or punishes a student based upon the quality of production, the asset model looks to see if a student has done a particular skill. If he or she has done this, they earn points. If not, they simply don't get that particular set of points. The first skill is a thesis point for 1 point. The second skill is to use all of the documents and provide one of the skills. If they do both of these, they get 3 points. After that is providing historical context for the documents, and that is 1 point. Then the student has to contextualize by looking to a bigger issue at that time period for 1 point. And last up, the student must provide synthesis, in which they connect the issues in the DBQ to another location, place, or era, and that is for 1 point. One problem for students will be to organize their information as they are taking notes. I have developed the following organizational tool for students to practice with during the year. I call it a 4-column organizer. The first column is the simplest part. It's just a narrow column to put the letter or number of the document. The second column is for students to put information about the document. This can include either the audience, purpose, or point of view. The third column is for students to list contextual information for the documents. And the fourth column is for students to provide synthesis for some of the documents to another time, period, place, or circumstance. But how will this look when the students get to the actual essay writing? I would suggest the following model to help the students with organizing all the information. First, the student should write a 2 to 3 sentence thesis that does the following. A thesis should answer all parts of the question. A thesis should provide a specific reason for the argument that is being given. And a thesis should provide specific events, issues, and a general justification for the argument that is being given. Second, the body paragraphs can follow this similar model. The first sentence is a topic sentence, providing a grouping for the documents. Next, the student should follow the rule of 3, provide 3 specific concrete examples. Each document should have at least one piece of outside information, and there should be a concluding sentence that should be a connection to the bigger historical context. This will provide that issue that we've talked about before of contextualization, and it will make sure that the students do it in each one of the body paragraphs so as to make sure that the readers see it clearly. Last up, there should be a concluding paragraph. In the past, I didn't have students write concluding paragraphs, but I think a concluding paragraph would really work with the new DBQ, and here's why. The paragraph should be entirely based upon synthesis. Have the students take the thesis, restate it in new words, and connect it to a current events issue from today. So as you can see, the changes to the DBQ are not that major. We are still using the thesis, document citing, and historical context skills from the past. The differences are in how the students must analyze and interpret the documents and provide connections outside of the time period. But we've already been doing this for some time for our students. So we are just becoming more aware of it. And we are defining the elements of each skill more closely. So we can be calm and carry on.